Welcome to Line by Line, where we help you to make your mark in the arts. And today, the kind of art that we're talking about is gaming. It's a fun type of thing. It involves comic strips. It involves gaming, which has got all kinds of artwork to it, but a whole lot of other technical stuff too. And today we have with us Professor Christopher Khuong, who is the Program Coordinator for Digital Gaming and Simulation at HCC. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, I understand with your background, you've got a pretty big background in gaming and simulation, and so you bring a lot of real world experience to the students, and we really appreciate that. So, tell us a little bit about the gaming program there at HCC. What do you guys offer students?
We offer two different major disciplines in our program, one art and one programming. So if people are interested in math and science and making things move and gravity work and time flow, ebb and web, um, particularly they might want to consider programming. If they want to make things pretty in a sense, they might want to consider the art discipline. And so both disciplines focus on one particular subject, which is creating a game together. And so for 2 years, they get together and they train up to 2 years. And towards the end of the 2 years, they work on a wide variety of projects from AR to VR, XR, mobile platforms. They work on mostly PC gaming because that's the easiest thing to develop for.
Well, okay, now you said PC games, VR games, AR games. Okay, for those that may not know all those letters and everything, what's the difference between all of them?
It's just different hardware for the most part and different play styles. So it's like comparing something like a smartphone to an old Nokia phone. What are the technical limitations and what can we do with that particular piece of hardware? Back in like 15 years ago, when Nokias were extremely popular, the only thing that what most people would play would be games like Snake, and it's just a simple line going around picking up pellets. But nowadays on VR platforms, we are looking at much more immersive experiences. It's mostly in your face experiences, and you can be in any you can play as pretty much almost any character, not just as a snake anymore. You're playing as an astronaut in space. You can play as a gladiator in Rome. You can play as an engineer at a science lab. You can play as a teacher in a classroom. You can be anyone and anywhere. And one of the great things about that is that experience.
Well, now VR stands for video reality or virtual reality, right? And
Yes,
AR stands for
augmented
artificial
reality.
intelligence. Uh,
Augmented reality.
Augmented. So the difference between virtual and augmented means what?
Virtual is typically simulated after or it's supposed to be in first person for the most part. It can be in third person, but it's supposed to be nowadays it's going to be on your face. There's this piece of computer hardware with two lenses, which is supposed to make you feel like you're absolutely there and anywhere you're in the virtual space. In augmented reality, you don't need to have it on your face. You can actually use your phone to as a camera, which projects real life environment onto your phone. So if I wanted to say, hey, I want to simulate um, rolling dice on the table, I could just put on my phone, tap it on there, and you can actually see the dice roll on the table on your phone. You may not see it in real life, but that's kind of the caveat behind augmented reality. But in some cases, we've been integrating both virtual reality and augmented reality in one. A lot of people like to utilize the term XR. Um, and it's more or less experimental. So you'll have where you can actually walk around your house with a VR headset on and actually do things like I am playing as a knight in shining armor, and I can actually project the Netflix on my wall, and that would be enticing for a lot of people who are interested in technology. Most I would think.
Absolutely, and even actors, because wow, it's like you're right in the middle of it all, right?
Mhm.
So, you were talking about there's two major disciplines, the art end and the programming end. So, does that mean that there's a diverse type of students that come to your program?
Yes, we have. I have been doing this for I think 15, almost 15 years now, maybe more. I've lost count. Our students come from ages. I mean, I taught elementary school kids to middle
Mhm.
school to high school. But the students that enrolled in our program specifically have been anywhere between 18 and 60 years. I've had people who come from accounting backgrounds. I've had students who come from medical fields. I've had a few students come from business, legal, and law. I had one guy in particular coming from accounting, who was really just trying out the program once just to see how it is before he goes back to his preferred degree plan. But he was just there just to
One that
experience
makes
it.
money, or is bread and butter, maybe?
Um, we have a lot of students, including people from other fields, who are just kind of like, well, gaming is fun. Therefore, I actually might think that I might like making games. Therefore, somehow the two are equated. It's like saying, hey, you see Van Gogh's art, and therefore you want to become a painter. Then when you realize that maybe this is the field for me, or maybe it isn't. Some folks want to give it a go, and that usually helps them determine whether or not they're into it or in it to win it, as opposed to like going to a 4 year and saying I just spent 20 grand and I don't know what I want to do. So
Well, and I will talk about this in the second segment, but I know there's a lot of jobs out there for the gaming and simulation. So we'll talk about that with you in the next segment. But you were talking about it covers 2D and 3D digital art. Now, when you talk about gaming and then there's simulation, what's exactly the difference?
one is mostly entertainment, and the other one is mostly for work. And I don't want to say you can't have fun in either. A lot of our students enjoy the entertainment part. So I'll say a few magical keywords, and I'll say things like Minecraft, Fortnite, Call
Yeah.
of Duty, and everybody jumps on board. But the moment I'll say
Hmm.
things like oil rigs, medical science, um, emergency or medevac vehicles, and I'll lose some folks because one is mostly geared towards uh business. I would say I have a lot of friends who work in the industry as consultants, or they'll work for the government making military, and obviously they can't show off those particular games. So yeah, they come from a there's a lot of ways you can break into the industry. It just depends on what you want to do.
So it's not just for entertainment. A lot of people think gaming, okay, that's entertainment, but there's other ways to use it for business, for military, for all kinds of things it can be applied, right?
Yes.
So now when the students go to the program, what are some things that they work on? What are some of the industry standard tools that they're able to learn?
For the most part, we use the standards, Photoshop, Illustrator. But as you dive more and more into game development, you'll be looking into either single A, double A, or triple A development. So we utilize the Unreal Engine, Unity game engine, Substance suite that includes Substance Painter, Designer, mostly, and then we also use Autodesk Maya. A lot of our students love using Blender, and we are also prone to using 3ds Max and a couple other applications as well, as long as it does what we need for production.
Excellent. Now, I'm assuming that the more different uh, tools you know how to use, the more marketable you are as an employee. Would you say that?
If you know how to use it and use it well, as opposed to just knowing it, it's like
Okay.
saying if I opened up Microsoft Word and Excel and I typed in a few essays and I'm absolutely experienced. Um,
Not exactly.
right. And then yeah, and then there's the reason why there's specializations for it. And obviously, like my partner included, just showed me there's certain other wonderful things that I have never done in Excel before. So yes, I am definitely not an Excel expert.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and talk about some of the actual projects that the students have worked on and some of the things they learned and also what they can do after they get their degree. So we'll be back right after this.
How prepared is your family if disaster shows up at your doorstep? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan before they show up. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
Let's go.
you'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes!
Make a plan today.
I love teaching at HCC.
I love helping students
with college credits.
with scholarships and financial aid.
Training them for life-changing careers.
Come learn with us.
HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
Welcome back to Line by Line, where we learn how to make your mark in the arts. And of course, the arts that we're talking about today deals with gaming and simulation. And a lot of it deals with artwork, and some of it deals with some very serious things that need to work, be it for the oil industry or military or even manufacturing or just different things. So it's got a practical side and an artistic side and an entertainment side, you might say. So, and we have with us today Professor Christopher Khuong, who is the Program Coordinator for Digital Gaming and Simulation. Welcome back to the show.
All right, good to be back.
Okay, so we talked about some of the things that you guys cover in the program, but now let's talk about some of the projects that the students have actually worked on. What are some of those, and what have they learned? What are they learning to accomplish?
The biggest thing that they work on is really communication. Our students do come from a wide, not just variety of backgrounds, but also a wide variety of skill sets. So one year we might actually have more 3D modelers. One year we might actually have more programmers. And then we could talk about certain subcategory roles, like say, for example, we might actually have more writers one year or for whatever reason. And so when that happens, our game plan changes and they're allowed to pitch a game that they want to work on depending on the requirements of the course. And so what they do is they get together and they try to make a project within about and depending between 8 to 16 weeks, depending on the semester. And the crucial part about game development isn't making the product work, it's making it work together. And when people discover that one of the hardest things about working together is the same reason why some folks wonder how married partners stay with each other for more than 30 years without getting into like a major dispute. But we all know people from uh, different all kinds of relationships have a wide variety of disputes, but somehow they manage to resolve them. And so when they're working together with not a team of just two, but they're working with a team of 20 or even a team of 200. So the question is, how do we make that work in such a setting where everybody is somehow cohesive and moving forward with a project? And every year it is the same. How can we make this work without miscommunication? And I guarantee you there's always going to be some mishap. The question is what we do afterwards and how we move forward from it.
What are some of the advice that you give students about how to make this work?
Don't be married to your work.
I like that. That's good. Yes, that's good for everybody to know. Um, well, and I know, like in theater, because that's my background. It all deals with teamwork, and television is my background, and teamwork. Everything is teamwork, and so it sounds like the same thing here. So you kind of help each other out, encourage each other, I assume. What are some other things that you tell them to do?
It can be anywhere between I actually provide a plan how they can approach their project. I will appoint leaders and tell them, hey, this is what you need to be doing, this is how you're going to be carrying your team, telling them and directing them. And it's one of the things that a lot of our advisors have stated, like what's missing from a lot of programs is we don't have enough production type roles. We don't have enough people who are gearing up for production. We know our students know what it takes to develop one or two things, but whenever they're trying to manage the project or work on a project together, it becomes more and more challenging. And so every year, the students don't just collaborate with each other, but they also go under the mentorship of our of our teachers, and of course our advisors. So what I do is, if they have a dispute, and they'll approach me and say things like, hey, we have this problem A and this problem B, how can we go about it? And I'll provide a reasonable solution, maybe multiple solutions, and say, hey, I would recommend this one right here, but if you choose the latter, this is what's potentially going to go wrong. And so sometimes, I have students who follow my guidelines, and I have some students who would like to challenge certain guidelines.
They like to do
And
it their way.
yes, and what's fascinating is I will always encourage my students to say to fight the norm. If you don't like how I run things, show me otherwise. Show me that you can do it otherwise, because the industry is always changing. It's like design. If I say 20 years ago, this is, and our design professors at university, Houston, even there, people lost their minds when IKEA changed their font, and everybody was absolutely upset. And then like a year later, nobody cared. It was just kind of like, oh, it just moved on, and and
Yeah.
and everyone's like, that's bad design, that's
Change is
good design.
inevitable.
Yeah.
Change is inevitable.
And I
Whether it's
would,
good or bad is something else, but it's inevitable.
yeah. And I will always encourage. I told my kids, like, if you come back and you did something different and you became millionaires, you feel free to just rub it in my face. Show me otherwise. I'm open to it. I more or less, I'm glad you did something, and you held your head up high, and you did what it took to make you and you yourself successful.
Well, it sounds like there's, of course, a lot of multimedia involved in this. Like you said, you've got writers, you've got people who do the coding, you've got people who are artists, you've got storytellers, you've got all kinds of people, but they all have to work together as a team. Am I understanding that right?
Yes. The
Okay,
simplest
so
answer I can give is yes. Um,
yes, and and working with artists, and then also people who are more technically oriented, sometimes that can clash. And so, what are your suggestions there?
um, a lot of people like using the phrase almost like a gang. We're a family. We make this work. It's a team. And so,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you understand that this isn't a you thing, it's an us thing, it's a we thing.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to
Mm-hmm.
make ourselves successful, not so much just one person. And that's what it, in my opinion, it takes to make your product a success. Is you know the ultimate goal for the project, and that's what I always will always advise our students to focus on.
Well, we're at, thank God, I think the end of COVID, or at least the pandemic of it. Um, what all did you do? What did you do to overcome that? I guess with gaming and simulation, it probably helped you more than hurt you. What do you think?
I am pretty technologically savvy to the point where I can pretty much I have four monitors running at all times, and more than less I know how to move with certain circumstances. However, I would stress that our industry is actually very um I would say there are some pros and cons. One of the biggest points is that I can help you fix things faster in person by pointing out certain things on your screen. But if you don't know how
That
to
makes
get to
sense.
that, if you don't know how
Absolutely.
to share your screen, if you don't know how to, let's say, turn on the computer, open certain applications, run Word or run Excel or run Unity or Unreal, it makes things a bit more challenging. Um, and one of the things in our industry is that we actually benefit a lot from working together in person. It gets the job done faster. There's a lot of accountability. And don't get me wrong, I love working at home. I have kids, I have fur kids, I can make coffee, I can run back and forth, but there are a lot of distractions. So in person, I can actually kind of get on someone's case more effectively should I ever see. And I know this, like I have a kid who's just kind of like, what you mean? And I'll say things like, I know when you're Facebooking. I,
Love it. Okay.
I,
Okay, well, we have a few minutes left, and I really want to talk about the market. I want to talk about once the student graduates, gets their certificate, etc. What do they have to look forward to in getting into the market and making some money and a name for themselves, or what's out there?
um, our field is very competitive. There's no way I could um really make that easier for everyone to understand. It is very competitive. You're competing with everyone, the person you're graduating with, the students from other universities who are also graduating, the students who are also not graduating. You're competing with me, your other professor who may or may not be looking for a job, or even the other professors. It's a very competitive field. And what you have to look forward to is not just the competition, but also to make sure that you can move forward and upgrade yourself even after school. School will only teach you so much. And I will always say things like, if you're doing stuff that you just saw on YouTube, there's a reason why it's on YouTube. There's a reason why it's free, or a reason why you learned a few basic things online. So I would stress pushing yourself to work hard. And our school actually the last semester in, we have a portfolio class which focuses on obtaining said jobs. You're supposed to go out, do interviews. I'll actually have some of my friends do an actual one-on-one with my students and say things like, hey, I want you to interview the student because I believe they have the qualifications.
Excellent. And before we go, we've got to talk about what are some of the future events that your students will be working on or are starting to working on. I know you've got lots of events coming.
So we actually have something called the Chilenium at Texas A&M, that which we have been invited to. Our students will be participating in a 48-hour game development production cycle, and it's going to push them to a very specific limit on how, if they can produce something in such a short amount of time. Lots of critical roles will be utilized during that kind of production time. And then our students are also participating in the Global Game Jam in the end of February, I believe, which should take also about 48 hours. So it's a huge rite of passage should you complete it. A lot of people do not succeed in such a experience, but one of the things that the students love so much about it is that they are going for that experience. Instead of 16 weeks, it's 2 days.
Excellent, excellent. Well, okay, we are definitely running out of time now, but it was wonderful talking to you. I learned a lot, uh, mainly because I don't know that much about it, but I'm sure other students are learning and figuring out what they can do with this. There's so many avenues that they can use this in for both entertainment and making money, right?
Of course.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Professor Christopher Khuong, Program Coordinator for Digital Gaming and Simulation at HCC. And we thank you, too, for watching us. Don't forget to register for any course you want, but of course, digital gaming and simulation sounds like a lot of fun, no matter what you're going to do with it. But remember, in line by line, you need to learn how to make your mark in the arts. And we'll keep telling you about different ways you can do that. So until next time, we'll see you then.